Welcome, everyone, to our NCAA Social Series. I'm Andy Katz. Well, as we get ready for the Olympic Games in Tokyo, these were the Summer Games of 2020, of course, postponed due to COVID to 2021. But we want to take the conversation to the collegiate model with two people that certainly know a lot about this and the feeder system, if you will, from college athletics to the Olympic Games, especially here in the United States, although American college players certainly are sprinkled among all nations around the globe, or a number of them. And so I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Wilhelmi she's the Senior Director of Collegiate Partnerships at the USOPC, as well as Scott Stricklin. Of course, his day job is the Athletic Director of the University of Florida. He's also the Chair of the USOPC Think Tank. So look, the Associated Press came out right in advance here of the games with, I thought, a pretty significant number as they were analyzing the impact of college athletics on the Olympic Games. And they came up with this stat of 463 U.S. athletes, which is about 76%, came from 169 different institutions, divisions 1, 2, and 3. If you break it down another layer, you can look at that 20 of the U.S. rosters in individual sports are made up of at least 80% athletes who played college athletics. So that's our baseline, Sarah, to show the importance of college athletics. First off, when you hear those numbers, what do you think?
Oh, we crunched those numbers, Andy, and we're really proud of them. We're thrilled. We have the best system in the world, and it's evident by how our pipeline organically comes through college to Team USA. So we're proud of it.
Yeah, you might have been the source there for the Associated Press. Scott, your thoughts when you hear those?
Yeah, well, I echo what Sarah said, but I'll take it a step further, Andy. You know, America and our U.S. OPC, our organizing committee, we're the only country that competes in the games that they're not funded by our government. So the federal government doesn't support the U.S. Olympic movement. It's privately funded, and it's supported in large part because college athletics and the development program that it provides for all these student athletes, all those young people you referenced who came through college athletics in order to develop themselves into Olympic caliber athletes, they were able to do it not because our Congress, the people in Washington decided they're going to support the Olympic movement like they do in every other country, but instead because colleges and universities in our country spend over $5 billion a year on Olympic sports. And so there's just, we have a tremendous advantage because of what college athletics does, because of what it provides. And it's allowed us to not only stock our U.S. Olympic team with collegians, but they also end up winning a lot of medals. And oftentimes we're at the top of the medal count. So not only is it incredibly efficient for the USOPC, but it's really successful once our athletes get to the games and compete.
So before we dive a little deeper, I sort of teed you off internationally as well, Sarah, and I know you're representing the United States here, but I mean, I just think of like Team Australia in men's basketball. I think of Patty Mills and Matthew Dellavedova, two players that played at St. Mary's who are Australian playing for Team Australia. How about the collegiate experience and how much that has also helped these other countries in terms of their Olympic rosters, even with their government funding?
A great point. And it is really pronounced again. We had over 100 different countries that competed in the NCAA system in 2016. So we're still crunching the numbers with the help of the NCAA staff, but we're excited to see where those numbers take us. And I think it speaks to the importance of the college model helping amplify and sustain sports globally. It really, truly is. It's a beacon for a lot of countries to come play here.
Well, so as we know, Scott, other countries don't have our same traditional collegiate athletic model. And yet, as great as all this sounds, Olympic sports are getting cut. So how do you cut through that within the think tank of getting to your peers, those athletic directors, and saying, wait a minute, we can't cut these sports because if we do, while it may not be a direct result next year, the year after, ultimately there will be a result in terms of probably fewer elite athletes if these sports get cut further down the road.
No question. And that's what you just described is why the think tank came into existence. Sarah had the forethought several years ago to, with the help of Kevin White, former Duke AD, and as a member of the USOPC board, to create the Collegiate Advisory Council, which was a group of athletic directors engaged with USOPC, understanding the importance of the connection between college athletics and the Olympic movement. And through that Collegiate Advisory Council that Kevin White chaired, the idea this past year through COVID was we do have a lot of Olympic sports that are in trouble that are not being prioritized on campuses. And we need a think tank, if you will, to really focus and help people understand, the importance of where the college athletics model fits in the Olympic movement and how it supports it. And secondly, what can we do to ease some of the burden and take away some of the hurdles that currently exist that make schools consider dropping sports? And so that's what a lot of what we've been looking at is how can we create policies, working with the NCAA, working with the national governing bodies of the various sports here in this country to create a more sustainable model to where these sports and these young people continue to have a voice and have a place where they can train on our campuses.
So, Sarah, how do we drive that point home? And look, we had two Olympians on our show just recently, Brooke Forty, who swims at Stanford, and Shante Lowe, who was a four-time Olympian, who was a track and field athlete at Georgia Tech. Quite simply, as they were telling me, there's no other place to sort of just high jump in terms of have that facility in an Olympic type facility like there is in the collegiate model across the country at various levels. Or to swim, obviously there are Olympic-sized pools around the country, but to have that kind of competition, you're not going to get that unless you are swimming at an elite college institution. So those things have to go hand in hand. How do you drive that home so they don't get cut?
Yeah, and I think there's probably two angles to that, Andy. On one hand, it's the best thing for the athletes. In our country, you have the latitude to choose where do you want to be coached, what academics do you want to acquire, what skills, and you get to pick your place and really develop. In other countries, the best of the best is kind of plucked out and put in a state institution with a state plan, and your control is lost. So that's an advantage for the athletes. But for the schools, I think Scott's getting at this too. It's part of our culture. It's who we are. And these opportunities really do help amplify and enhance campus offerings. And so, but what Scott hit on is what the think tank unpacked is the absolute need to be flexible, because not all of our Olympic sports operate with the same challenges as football and basketball. So how do we start to kind of separate that a little bit and get comfortable with customizing to the needs of each sport in their landscape?
So, Scott, you would know this more than anyone in terms of cost. And I'm just picking up off this point that Brooke and Shante were telling me was, how expensive it would be to do this on your own without sponsorship, for lack of a better term. What are the dollars? I don't need exact figures, but what would it be if an athlete didn't have that infrastructure of a major university?
Yeah, well, you start breaking down being a student athlete provides monetarily. There's a scholarship involved, and depending on what school you're at, that can be anywhere from $20,000 a year up to over six figures, $100,000 just for the scholarship. And in addition to that, you get a place, a dorm room or a housing check. You get food. You get, we're going to give you gear. We're going to train you with some of the best coaches in the world, who are going to provide daily attention to helping you become as good as you can be, both in your sport and also academically. And you think about it's hard to really put a price on that, but for some athletes at certain schools, it could be $250,000 annually, and even on the conservative side, you're probably looking at $50,000 a year that is being invested directly into these young people that are allowing them to train. And so that's what they would be looking at, trying to figure out out of pocket how to do that. The other part, and this plays off of something both of you guys have talked about, is we do train international students as well, obviously, because we have them as part of our program. We don't realize how unique the American college athletic model is. And I really didn't understand this until a few years ago. I was talking to a young lady who was from Europe, and she was looking to come over to go to school in America and compete. And I asked her why she wanted to come to America. And she said, in Europe, when you graduate, whatever their version of high school is, you have a choice to make. To Sarah's point, you can go and join a club and train in order to try to improve yourself as an athlete. But if you do that, you cannot go to further education. If you decide to go the education route, you go to university, but there's no opportunity to continue to develop as an athlete. America is the only place in the world, because of the collegiate model, where you can combine the opportunity to continue to earn education and get a degree with the opportunity to compete at the highest level, at Olympic caliber level, and prepare for the opportunity to go win a medal for your country.
Sometimes the way we describe something matters, and it feels like, I've been doing this a long time, as Scott knows, 3 decades, and I can't remember when it was, but there was a shift, a transition from calling these sports non-revenue to Olympic. And it felt like when that happened, it was even more of an emphasis on its importance, on what it meant to compete in those sports. How much does that help, Sarah, to call them Olympic sports rather than non-revenue sports?
Oh, huge. And I got to thank the Collegiate Advisory Council for really being a contributor to that. So in 2017, when we started, that was one of the first priorities, was this notion of how do we message? How do we convey the value and the ties? And we launched our Olympians Made Here campaign, which is the first time we're even able to visually show a school brand with the USOPC brand in an editorial way. And it's so vital to tell that story, to tell it with the imagery and the language and all those pieces, because it's the fabric of something our country holds dear, and that is excellence, the chance to be best in the world. And that's a segue that's important through the college and Team USA systems collectively.
Scott, back from when you were in your SID days to being an athletic director, I'm just curious, when do you remember that shift happening?
It's been in the last 10 years, it seems to me. Early on, it was kind of, you heard it early on, it was almost, there was a realization that non-revenue, while from a financial standpoint made total sense, it was a little offensive when you look at what these young people are putting into trying to be as good as they are, and what we on our campuses are trying to do, investing in those young people. So I would say, it's probably gained full acceptance here in the last decade or so. And for every reason, Sarah talked about, it's really important, the messaging and how we position these sports. No, they don't, in our country, have the same financial impact of a football or a men's basketball. But because of those two really important sports on our campus, we are able to fund all these other Olympic sports that provide us the opportunity to see our young people go off and represent Team USA in these other countries.
Sarah, also, I think we're in an era, which is great, where a lot of these Olympic sports are getting much more exposure and coverage. The proliferation of, conference networks has certainly helped in that manner. Obviously through social media, all that's happening. And even now with name, image, and likeness, I think you're going to see a lot of Olympic sports athletes, at the collegiate level, really benefit more than I think was even projected when all this was being discussed over the last couple of years. How much do you think that has helped, whether it's gymnastics, whether it's, swimming, which certainly could get even more coverage at the collegiate level, but other sports like that, track and field, certainly, whether it's soccer, I could go down the list, that these certainly are starting to get more coverage, but the more they get, ultimately will benefit the USOPC model going forward.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you're not visible, and you're vulnerable, to be quite honest. So the more visibility we can give these sports, the better. And I agree with you too. The notion of the conference networks and even the individual athlete platforms, we have a whole new wave of opportunity ahead of us to really showcase. And I was always surprised when I started this job in 2016, how many people were surprised we have a national team every year, not just every 4. But it's every year. And so we got to tell that story with the schools collectively, because we have Olympians and we have national team athletes currently on campus, or they're alumni of campus. And we got to keep that thread and that awareness high.
So the other aspect of this that I want both of you to comment on that deserves to get more mention is the Paralympian aspect to this, because, we talk about cost. There's even more cost, obviously, at the Paralympian level, depending upon, what your situation is and what sport you're involved in. So Scott and Sarah, just how much can that also be a huge benefit if you've gone through the collegiate model to compete at the Paralympics?
Well, this is obviously an underserved part of most college campuses. We're guilty of it here at the University of Florida as well. But one of the fun things about being a part of the think tank is we've had a chance to look at sports sustainability. We've looked at the structure of sport and how we can streamline that to make remove some hurdles. We've looked at what kind of partnerships we can have to promote these young people and the relationship between universities and the Olympic movement. But one of the really recent topics that we've come up with is creating a collegiate para sports inclusion project to really highlight and emphasize the opportunities here. And as more schools are talking about that, more schools understand what this could provide, I think we're going to see a lot more opportunities for those young people. And Sarah knows it better than anybody. I'll let her kind of take it from here, but she's been a real advocate for the Paralympic piece of this.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. It's so cool. Who would have known when I stepped into this chair in 2016? We did the homework. So we took a look to kind of see what is the footprint of our Paralympic athletes in connection to college. And 40% of that team in 2016 competed in college for 79 different schools. So I think it's organically happening already. And I'm so excited because this project will give us an avenue for schools who are in the space already to work together. And we think with that unity, we can really build something stronger. So we're excited about it. And I got to give a shout out to big thanks to the Collegiate Advisory Council and their work. And it seems like a decade ago, but it was just January 2020. We had, for the first time ever, Paralympic is now included in all 3 NCAA divisions manual language, which means they're now afforded the same exceptions as an Olympian. So we're making awesome strides together, and I'm just so grateful for all the leaders around the table to help shepherd it forward.
So Sarah and Scott, I mean, look, we can't tell, the broadcast partners what to do, but how much, I'm curious, has there been a push in addition to obviously Team USA, which will be across their chests, to at least graphically or verbally make it known where this athlete competed at the collegiate level, regardless of what division, the individual competed in?
Yeah, I can start with that one, Andy. So we are so grateful. We signed a contract with the NCAA to really be committed. Like, let's tell this story using our channels. And so we're so grateful at trials. I hope folks were watching and you could see the signage. The Olympians made here, co-branding was there, very visible. And then NCAA championships, it was all over. And it was such an awesome testament to that correlation and that connection. So we're also hopeful that during NBC, we are feeding storylines to their folks. We are really encouraging that college storytelling becomes part of the fabric of telling the games through our lens. And we know ESPN and your partners have been great to help with the championship side to do the same. So I think we're at the forefront. We're just getting started and making this a new norm, but it's a pretty exciting horizon.
And I'll follow up that one of the other things that's exciting is a lot of these schools, the University of Florida is one of them. We're in a league that has its own conference network. And so, the SEC network or the Big Ten network, all these other conference networks, we've had great dialogue with them to, help us tell the story of the athletes from your conference who are having success in Tokyo and make those connections for the people at home that may not otherwise realize that, there's someone from my alma mater of a school that I follow that's having great success over there. And this is also the point, and you didn't ask this, Andy, but I thought I'd take the opportunity that the University of Florida is going to have 30 Gators in Tokyo, 15 of which will be on Team USA. So that's an opportunity. I know on our campus level, we're going to really spend the next couple weeks making sure that everyone who loves the University of Florida understands who these young people are and their connection to our university. And I know every other school out there that has an Olympian representing them are going to do the same thing.
Well, Scott, I'm not surprised by that. I will be more impressed if you tell me in the Winter Games you got 30 Gators.
Baby steps. We're more of a summer Olympic type school.
Yes. All right. Last thing, obviously the Olympians themselves. I'm just curious, Scott, Sarah, just what kind of input you've had from them as they discussed, as I mentioned, we talked to Shantae and Brooke a couple weeks ago, but just what are you hearing from them about the need to preserve the Olympic model, if you will, at the collegiate level, divisions 1, 2, and 3?
But one of the things that again, I go back to, people think of football, men's basketball, when they think of college athletics because of the profile they have in our country. But so many schools do such a great job of making all their athletes feel equally important, regardless of what sport they're in. And so whether you're men's track and field or women's swimming and diving or a gymnast or tennis or any of these other sports, I know they feel like they get tremendous support because of the emphasis that our universities place on their sport and what they're doing. And they would, we talked about earlier the financial impact of what being invested in them. But I think they see that and realize that on a daily basis. And so they are real advocates for doing anything that we need to do to make their sport more sustainable and to make this ecosystem healthier.
And I can echo that from the interaction we've had with the national team level. So when we went to, before the Winter Games, we held a media day and our athletes came through our college stop and we had their school pennants to take pictures and send stuff back to school to put on their channels. And we got in trouble because there's too much of a ruckus because too many athletes were singing their alma mater songs. They were doing their rally cries and getting competitive. It was awesome. And I can tell you, we're going to see that again. We're going to be putting up what we call our college corner. We know there won't be family and there won't be fans in the stands in Tokyo. So we're going to try to bring college to them a little bit. So we're going to be bringing their pennants and their good luck wishes from their schools. And I can tell you, Shantae Lowe was one. So you just talked with her, Andy. She was one of our anchors and our key athletes to help build this college corner concept that'll be active in Tokyo. So our athletes are so proud. And I can also tell you on the heels of COVID, where they were looking for places to train and they want to see the athletes behind them have the same opportunity. They are passionate about preserving this model in our country. So it's been a really awesome effort to work together on it.
And that's a great point to end on, Sarah, because during this pandemic, the universities were some of the first places to open up athletically to at least give a place for some of these collegiate Olympians to train as they work toward the trials in the spring of 21. So certainly it was a huge benefit that even that was open as slowly it became open in the latter stages of 2020. To both of you, thank you. Appreciate it. That'll conclude this edition. As always, you can go to ncaa.org/social series where all of them are archived over the last year and a half. Well, everyone, check out the Tokyo Olympic Games and we'll check out all NCAA athletes competing. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.